Hi, everyone. I'm going to talk about lots of things I have no expertise in. Probably there's people in this room that have more expertise in virtually everything I'm going to say. I'm not a videographer. I don't do video. I don't know the meaning of lots of the terms that I use every day now. I'm a project manager. I was brought into this project as a project manager and as the technical lead. We started, with a lot of excitement for this project. They're great. We're going to distribute knowledge to the entire Earth, and it's all very exciting and all this kind of stuff. And we have these meetings, and we talk about these lofty goals. And we go, great, how are we going to produce these videos? And everyone in the room would turn and look at me, and there was this awkward silence. And I go, I don't know nothing about producing no damn videos. So we made it up. We made it up, and I'm here to tell you some of the stories of some of the things that we learned along the way. Our experience is going to be different from yours. Our goals are different. We're not doing for credit, that kind of thing, for some of our Tennessee guests. But some of the things may stimulate some thoughts into how you go about producing some of these videos. It's a very simple process at base, right? All you need is a studio and a camera and someone to operate the camera. It's really quite simple. These turn out to be challenging, each of their own, of course. We had no studio space. Hopefully our Tennessee guests have that kind of infrastructure in place already. You won't have to do this, but we had to scramble all over campus. Who's got a space? Who's got a room? We relied on some luck. It turns out that a close relative of one of our faculty members is the director of plant operations at Vanderbilt, and it turns out, hey, we've got a room all of a sudden. But you don't necessarily need a studio, depending on how you want to do it and what kind of quality that you're shooting for. You can produce a perfectly fine Coursera class with a laptop, with a webcam, and with a simple package of software like Screenflow. This is a piece of software that captures a PowerPoint slide presentation live while you're doing it. It captures whatever's on your screen, but usually PowerPoint. And your webcam captures the face of the person making the presentation, and you can embed that in it. You can move it around in different places. You can take it out if you want. It's a very simple one-person process, and there are lots of schools that do this. University of Virginia, for example, I think it's University of Virginia, I learned at the Coursera Partners Conference, puts together what they call Coursera kits. And they will, faculty members say, I'm doing a Coursera course. They check out a kit to this person, and they take it back to their office, and they put it on their desk. And it's a camera and a computer capture, and they say, OK, faculty member, go to town, make your lectures, bring us the videos when we're done, and we'll get them set up for you, right? And so it's all completely hands-off. We were looking to hit a higher standard of quality. We really wanted to represent the brand well, the Vanderbilt brand well, that kind of thing. We were very excited about the content we were putting up. We wanted to match the quality of the video with the quality of the content, so we aimed a little bit higher. So studio space became an issue. And then there's other considerations down the road. Faculty, of course, are extraordinarily creative and interesting people. That's why they're faculty members. And so they'll want to do things like go on remote locations. Let's do a shoot at a clinical studio, at a clinic, a medical clinic, course that we're shooting right now. It's like, well, we can do that. That poses some issues, right? We got to move equipment. We got to get personnel there. Then you've also got people that are doing this, and so then you all of a sudden raise HIPAA issues and all kinds of other issues and permissions, and so there's all kinds of things to work through. But start simple. Start with the simple. Don't be afraid to tell your faculty, no, I'm sorry, we can't do that right now. Maybe in the second iteration, we can fly to Wales and shoot on the cliffs or something, But right now we're kind of stuck in our studio. If you are producing a studio, if you need a studio for this, there's, once again, these things may be obvious, some considerations to take into account. Noise is probably the most important thing. Somebody once said, television is radio with pictures. And as important as the video content itself, the video piece of the content is itself, the audio really is what matters. And the audio is where the content lives. That's where the students are getting it from. And so if you have very poor audio and the world's greatest video, that's a fail. Concentrate a lot on the audio. So your studio needs to be as quiet as possible. The room that we had was very nicely sized for what we wanted to do. Our very first course, the professor said, we shot a few lectures, and he said, you know, I'd really like to do a green screen. It's like, oh, okay. Well, the room was too small because you need, for a green screen, you have to light the green screen, then you need some space, and then you light the subject, and then you have the camera. So there was an adjacent room which had served as an office to this room before. So we actually opened the door and shoot from the other room in to make enough space, right? So consider what you're going to do before you figure out your space. If you're going to do green screen, you're going to need a little bit longer space. And then figure out there's accessibility issues. Our studio right now is in the basement of a dormitory on campus. So since it's a dorm, there's very high security these days. So it's a card swipe access. So everybody that uses this studio has to get card swipe permissions granted. Then there's also parking. None of the faculty live or have their offices very near this studio, and so when you go there, where are they going to park, and how is this going to work? And then you have your crew as well. Luckily, one of my primary videographers works in the building next to the dorm. That turns out to be really handy. And then does this room have things like accessible restrooms? Is there a mirror? Right, a very simple thing. Professor comes in ready to start shooting. I really want to kind of see my hair. So sometimes we have a webcam up because we have no mirror in the studio. Look at this. And so we're working on those issues, but those are just things that you want to consider. When you're getting equipment for your studio, once again, consider what you want to do. We spec'd out cameras, for example. We asked the Department of Public Affairs at Vanderbilt what cameras ought we to use, and they made some very nice recommendations. In the luck of having too much to do, I was slow in ordering the cameras, and then when the professor said, you know what, I really want to do some green screen, well, the cameras that they had spec'd out were relatively simple, just shooting cameras. And what you really want is the 4.2.2 codec for your cameras, because it's so much easier to green screen from that, to key off that green screen. So since I was slow in getting the cameras ordered, it actually worked to my advantage, because I got to change the cameras out to some cameras that had the proper codec for it. And then, like I say, with the space, what platform are you going to use to capture this stuff on and edit your stuff on? This is partly going to depend on who your videographers are and what your personnel are, but are you going to standardize over all of it? Are you going to do different things? We chose to standardize on the Mac platform because we were in a hurry, and that's what most of my people used. But the first course, the professor did the PowerPoint slides on a PC, and when we transferred them to the Mac, there was just occasionally some tiny formatting changes. Not a huge deal, except for this was Doug Schmidt's programming class. And so a semicolon on the wrong line is disastrous. And so we ended up wasting studio time while we were fixing slides, moving a semicolon back up to the line before, and that sort of thing. So it's an issue that you want to think about. For editing software, once again, are you going to standardize across? Can you do different things? Can you afford to do different things? We standardized on Adobe Premiere, partly because most of the videographers that I work with find the newest version of Final Cut Pro from Apple to be a poor upgrade from version 7. In addition, Apple is having some trouble getting their hands around how to license software to educational institutions, and those barriers were really not worth overcoming. We had very good institutional pricing on Adobe packages, so we decided to standardize essentially on Premiere. Now, when I say standardize, take that with a grain of salt, because each case, I mean, that's the plan going into the class. Each class is going to come out a little bit differently. Like we were talking about, Dave ended up shooting most of his own class. You're going to find really interesting variations in how the faculty want to do this. We'll talk about that some more in a minute. And then what other sort of amenities are you going to have? It's been suggested to us that we should get a teleprompter. We've mostly been using, let me describe the process for you. We have, for a simple talking head video, like the ones that Doug Schmidt was showing you earlier, we shoot Doug, his torso against a green screen, and then we capture his PowerPoint slides on a laptop that he's looking at mounted under the camera. And so then the videographer makes a template, and I'll show you these in a minute, and drops the video into one part, drops the PowerPoint into the other part, and then essentially you're ready to go.
Do you utilize any kind of a tablet, like a walk-on tablet or anything like that for writing over?
We don't yet.
See some of the videos?
Yes, absolutely.
Recommendations for that type of technology?
We haven't been using one yet, but I want to. We will. We definitely will. Coursera has some recommendations on their website, and once again, there's a platform issue. The best ones for that purpose seem to be Windows-based, because they work better with the iPad doesn't easily let you annotate PowerPoint slides. It takes some real gymnastics there. Right, exactly. Right, you can buy apps for it. You can do, there are things you can do, but you have to then get your PowerPoint into the new app. It's always hoops to go through. Check out. Absolutely. Coursera has an excellent set of pages about how to outfit your studio. And mostly it's a very, very simple setup, but it gives you a very good idea, and it recommends a couple of models of tablets for that. So there's all kinds of pieces that go into this. I've outlined most of what looked to me to be the parts of producing one of these videos, and some of the people that have done these in the room might be able to add some more or correct me. You've seen the faculty talking about preparation and other things. That can't be overstated. The before course preparation will save you so much time in the studio and after in post-production. It's really important that the faculty member come in with slides that are complete, that are free of copyright issues already. It becomes an enormous time sink, we found, to edit the slides after we've captured the video and the slides together. It's doable. It's not a difficult process. Screenflow will let you drop a JPEG of a slide in. But if you have lots of them, in some of the early courses we did, in a 30-slide PowerPoint deck, we might have 15 of them that had corrections. And so that becomes a rather tedious process to sit. Actually, Doug was bragging about how much time he spent on the discussion forums, but what he didn't mention was prior to that, he spent lots of time editing his own PowerPoint slides in the video because the staff, including me, that were assigned to do those things didn't have enough time to do them. It's not our full-time job, and so he did lots of that himself. All of that kind of thing can be avoided if the slides are right beforehand. Most of your faculty are going to come in with slides that they've done for their face-to-face classes. Generally speaking, they're going to be teaching classes they've already done before. So they come in with a slide deck, but it's not going to work quite the same. First of all, there's the copyright issues, right? You're going to have to take almost every image out and find something else new for it. And you need to make sure that animated slides especially are correct. Because editing those, you can't just drop the JPEG in. You actually have to capture the animation and then drop that in, which is even more time consuming. So the preparation is extremely important. All of these other roles we've talked about a little bit. I'm sorry, where am I at here? There we go. copyright clearance, we need the video shooter, someone to capture the slides, the director. Now these are not necessarily distinct people, and I'll show you how we've grouped them together for some of our courses here. The video editor, the quizificator, quizifying videos seems to be a word that's, it'll be in the OED in a few years, I'm sure. So the variations of it are coming up. I'm using quizificator here. Quality controller, discussion board monitor, and then platform support. In our courses, we kind of split them up this way. There's the There's the faculty member. For our courses, the director also did the slide capturing. Actually, that was me. The video shooter, I like to have be just a person doing that because that's the important piece, right? And we've been very fortunate to have some extraordinarily talented people around campus that have been helping us with this project. Several of them in the room right now. John Brazel is actually videotaping this session. He shot a lot of Doug Schmidt's course. Jeff Shoup shot even more of it. And Joe Hills is helping me with another course that we're doing right now. His specialty, the course we're doing is online gaming, and Joe's, I would say an expert actually, and a minor celebrity in Minecraft YouTube videos. He will screen capture playing Minecraft and do some funny bits over it, and he's got quite a number of subscribers. Well, it turns out for this class that we're doing, the English professor, is doing a course on online games and narrative, and he wanted to capture gaming footage. And so here's Joe, who's got tons of experience in that, and it's not as easy as it sounds. And so Joe is helping out with that. And so look around for your talent and what you've got. The video editing, videographers will tell you, and rightly, that it has to be the same person as the shooter. You can't take what one person shot and give it to someone else to edit. That's not quite true, and especially in this environment, I don't think it's necessarily true. If we produce, for example, a template, and like I say, I'll show you these in a second, with the PowerPoint slides and the video that can be dropped in. Jeff Shoup produced one for Doug Schmidt's class. Then the editing is not as difficult as it seems. Now, this course we're doing on online gaming is going to require a lot heavier editing. It's got 3 different types of video shoots. There's the game capture. The professor also has 5 graduate students that he does discussions with. And then he also is going to have some PowerPoint over green screen. So he's going to have 3 different sorts of videos at the end of the day, and I actually put together 3 different teams to handle those different things, and the editing is going to be more of a challenge there. And then there is quizification, platform support, discussion boards. We have that all sort of centered under the role of the teaching assistant, although it's sort of amorphous, teaching assistants. The formats we talked about a little bit earlier, particularly with the Tennessee people this morning. One of the issues is the videos are 16 by 9. Almost every PowerPoint slide deck in the earth is 4 by 3. You can change them to 16 by 9, but a professor coming in with a deck that they've taught for a class for 10 years is going to be 4 by 3, I guarantee you. So that poses some issues, and I'll show you how we solve those in a minute. We shot at 720p because we want to future-proof our archive as much as possible. Coursera is very generous with the terms of use of your videos, and we can use them for other things. So we wanted to save that high-quality archive. But the trade-off is storage space. Each of our courses is taking, well, it varies depending on the course, but maybe 1 terabyte of storage space to store the raw video, the raw PowerPoint captures, all that kind of stuff, so that you could reconstruct this later or edit it or change it around, that kind of thing. 1 terabyte of class is going to run you into some storage costs real quick. So consider what the trade-off is there. You can save some space by lowering the format. And then you want to think about how long are you going to archive these forever? For how long? These are issues we haven't solved yet. But you want to keep them consistent with your other policies, so that, for example, if a student can appeal their grade for 3 years after they've taken the class, you probably should have the videos available for 3 years because you may need to go back to them. How long are you going to life cycle the class? Are you going to run it again in the spring? We're sort of thinking we're going to run our classes about 3 times. Each of the professors that have done one so far have said there's heavy modifications to come in that second round. So you need to consider that in your production schedule. We're going to be producing new classes, but when the second round comes around for these classes, there's going to be some modifications. So I need to account for that in the schedule. This is the first way we solved the 4x3 and 16x9 problem. Thank you. John Brazel shot this for us. We shot a tight shot of Doug's head and his PowerPoint slides next to it in 2 panels. This was extraordinarily effective, especially for the international students who loved this format. They found the very close face much easier to understand than what we actually went for the bulk of the videos, which was what he was showing you earlier. Jeff Shoup developed this. Much smoother looking, much classier looking, but the international students found it more difficult to understand him because they couldn't see his face as clearly. So an interesting trade-off there. This is done, you can see the 4x3 slide here, and then the green screen Doug there. And then Dave already showed you, he did a full body green screen where he had the screen down under his feet that way and sort of talked in front of the slides. And so you can do a variety of things to solve that problem, or not solve it at all. You can certainly just put up a 4x3 video, and all you get is sort of black bars on the sides, like watching old television these days. This is, I usually don't show people my Gantt charts on a first date, but it's probably hard to read from where you are, but I set out a set of steps for how to schedule the video out, that kind of thing. I use Microsoft Project to do it, and then I coordinate that with a SharePoint site, which I won't show you here, but the SharePoint site we share among the team. It has a calendar on it so that if somebody's out of town, we can keep that. We can keep track of the shoots. We keep the notebook from the video shoots. There was a blooper at 5:36, that kind of thing there. And then we keep the task list from the project. The potential bottlenecks, I already talked about the faculty prep. Video editing is a bottleneck. Rendering, once the video is edited, then you have to produce the final product into your MP4 before you upload it, or whatever format you're choosing. If you don't have very high quality hardware behind this, and you have lots of videos stacked up, it's going to take you days to render out video. Copyright clearance, quality control at the end of the day, and especially labor. Coursera is recommending that videos take about 5-to-1 ratio. A 5-minute video takes about 25 minutes to produce. We have found that to be pretty low, actually. I think Dave's estimate is probably closer, which is about 10-to-1 in terms of how long. Control your namespace. Faculty will come in with all kinds of different organizational schemes. Get that up front and name your files about it. So are they organized by weeks? Are they organized by sections? Are they organized by modules? What do they call it? The first 2 courses that I was involved in, the professor called them sections, and then each section had sub-modules. And the second one, they had modules, and each thing under it was sections. Terribly confusing to my poor videographer, but if you get control of it on the front end, you have a lot better experience. And then how are you going to archive these things? Yes.
I thought I saw while you were talking, just a FYI, don't say good morning, don't date your video, don't say in today's news,
different times of year, that kind of thing, are not going to translate for future iterations of the class, even when they run. We're shooting a class now, which we started shooting in February. The professor was wearing a very heavy sweater. We're still shooting, and he's redoing some of those videos, and so he's walking into the studio with this sweater going, oh, why did I do that?
Do you have a rough budget per course, cost per course?
Cynthia does.
The provost current estimate is about $75K per course. So numbers at Penn State were running at $45K, but they have a large infrastructure, so the cost is spread within an established mechanism. We're a little bit more expensive because each is ad hoc. We're a lot more expensive. That's great.
I was just going to add one thing. You had made the point earlier about the audio. I took
It's a big deal.
UVA course. I had to go out and buy a speaker to hear the videos on my iPad because unless I held it up to my ear, I couldn't hear the volume.
Yeah.
That's why you want a camera person also, because the just to listen to the sound, because you can't hear it by yourself when you're. I learned that hard lesson. Okay, I just wanted to quickly show the quizzification process for those who are. I guess you're going to sit there and listen anyway, even if you're interested or not. So when you come into the Coursera, has everyone been in Coursera scene? I can just sort of take you in here. This is the view that the student sees. You come in. All this stuff is in full control of the faculty member of how it is you want to arrange that. For my courses, I said they would go into the course sessions, and then click whatever week they were in. They had the stuff here. You'd click into a. Let me just grab a random video. Okay.
Did you write that too?
They're, no, that was different. They're, some are loops from GarageBand, and I would modify them. So wherever there are these yellow dots are actually quizzes. And so this is a 12-minute, I think I saw 12 minutes coming in. Yeah, 12:22 coming in. I think the recommendation is keep it under 10 minutes. In our case, with sort of this global class, we're not sure how people are watching. Are they at a bus stop? Are they doing it at work? Some people said, during my lunch hour, I can actually go watch a couple of videos and then come back. So
Coursera is not putting hardware constraints, because I've had taken some Coursera courses that the professor spent an hour talking about, so I don't know.
yeah, it's not a hardware constraint. It is yeah, for us also, we're spending a lot of time with Derek in the Center for Teaching, and we are being educated about certain things. About listening to a person blather on for an hour is not. It's not. Yeah, that's right. It's not interesting. It doesn't help learning. It doesn't. Yeah. And so, so what would happen is you'd come into a place. Let's see if I can just. It's just good that you don't have a strategy because people will treat it as if it doesn't exist. So these are reasons why people might not know the strategy. So here, the video stops, and then you need to answer the question. And the question can be, here's a multiple choice. Why? Does everyone here know the strategy of their organization? Do you know the strategy of your organization? Yeah. What do you mean, yeah? Because, yeah, well, anyway, the point here is that if you're going to do something innovative for your company, that you need to know what the strategy is so you can actually make it align with this. Okay, so basically, check all that apply. In this case, let's say I say them all, submit, incorrect, try again. Let me turn that one off, submit, correct. Then it allows me to watch the rest of the video. And so these actually are recorded, collected. They go into the grade book. People understand what they, basically in terms of their grade, you can assign a point value and things like that. So let me show you the sort of in the background how that goes together. So does that make sense? Is that? And then I'll press OK, continue. And it goes on. And this was actually a green screen in a conference room. And I couldn't get far enough, and so I had to cut my legs off. Okay. And keeping track of your outfit. That is hard. Especially if you're a guy, you don't have that many outfits. Yeah. Okay, so what happens is you go into, let's just go into the course. So from the faculty perspective, when you're building the course, you come into this place, we call this the section manager. The section manager has the different sections of the course. Here's the syllabus section, then the week 1 section, and then it'll go down to the week 2 section, week 3, and on. A section has videos, and then a section has quizzes. And a section can also have other kinds of assets that you would download. So let me go ahead and go into a piece of, let's see, let me see if I can, oh, what's happened here? Okay. Yeah, there it is. If you're going to put a quiz into a video, basically you upload your video. I won't go into that process, but there's a place to do it. Your video goes in there. You can preview it. That's not the same music, see? And then again, you see the video, the quiz in there. And what you'll do is you'll say, see here where it says in video quiz. I can edit that, and it takes me to this quiz editor. And so here's where it's a little bit kind of geeky, I think, in a way. See, these are the questions. I can go on a question. There's a thing, if you fold a piece of paper 50 times, how thick is the resulting piece of paper? Anyone? It's halfway to the sun. Yeah, halfway to the sun, right? And the 51st folds past the sun. So so I ask this question, short answer, regular expression. They put it in, and what you do then is you can watch the video, and you can cue it right where you want the question to appear. And so you'll watch the video. Let's see. I'm not sure why it's not playing. I'm not going to belabor this, but I think you get the idea here. So you fold this paper. I want the question to go there. I say set cue point. It sets it. And I can get really obsessive about how close I want that to go. And you can sort of go back and forth. Sometimes because for me, I put the quiz in afterwards. So I did all my lectures, and then I went back and put the quizzes in afterwards. Actually, my TA did most of it. The first few with him. Yeah, go ahead.
See, I never knew how to do that. I did a Word document.
Mm-hmm.
Did my questions, sent it to my TA, and told them what second to embed.
Yeah.
And then also, because I didn't know any better, I did an explanation for every question.
Right, right.
I mean, I'm glad.
I just asked really easy questions. Require.
Work, but
yeah, yeah.
you can do explanation for
Right, that's right. So you have this question level explanation, points you give if the wrong answer feedback, right answer feedback. So it's fairly sophisticated. If you're doing any kind of Blackboard, Schoology, any of those kind of platforms have similar built-in things. The really cool thing that I just wanted to show you quickly was I have this I call it Diagnostic. So basically I want them to do a survey that forces them to look at something in their life and decide, do I have innovation problems in that aspect of my life? This is week 3 group constraints. And so I have them do a survey. They have to decide what environment they're assessing. Is it schoolwork? We're also collecting this data for research purposes. And then here I have what seems to be a fairly normal kind of survey. Right? It turns out this is really hard to make, and it wasn't one of the base ones built in. And so who was it? Was it Zach? I think it was Zachary, one of the TAs, the computer science TAs, figured out how to write this program for us to make this appear. And so in that way I said, you can do anything within Coursera if you know how. And so since this is not a native form, the native form is normally Q&A or fill in the blank or those kind of questions. And so we said, well, that's great, but I need 8 of them. And so how am I going to do that? If we go into let's look in the bowels of that question. So this is the question. It has, we'll go right in here. Let's look at one of these. Oh, here's the real bowels. OK. So edit Raw XML. That's the scary button. Let's press the scary button. OK. So you get lots of, like stuff like this. Do you want a radio button? Do you not want a radio button? And this will go on and on and on and on and on and on. It goes for a while. And that's the thing that sets up that little matrix of questions there. And so what is cool is that you can actually, we just did it once. You take that. Let me go back out of here. Let me just cancel. I can take that raw XML, I can copy it. Oops, let me get in here. I can copy all that, and then I can put it in a different place, and it'll make a whole new one just like that, and I'll just go back and re-edit and change the specific terms. And so in that way, this is very powerful, because in Blackboard you can't get access to the underlying code that actually causes something to appear on the screen. In these quizzes, let's just go back to the actual preview of the quiz. Sure, if you want it, yeah. If you're going to ask those kind of questions, yeah, I'm happy to do that, yeah.
Well, is that something you can share on the forums?
Yeah. Yeah, build it in, I guess. The problem with it is that when it spits out the answers, so when you go back and look at the answers, it's sort of in a funky format, so you have to like Perl script it to get all this stuff out. But that's okay, you can. It's something else to learn, right? So just quickly, just wanted to go here. So if I go to my quizzes, and let me just take a quiz. Let's attempt this quiz. One thing I can do is you can actually make videos appear here in the quizzes. You can make pictures appear there. You can make you can put a YouTube video that will embed in here. And so that way it's very, very powerful that you can actually make anything happen in there that you want. It's just that you have to know that imagine that it's possible, then find someone who actually knows how to implement that. And so that's what I've been doing, is just being really good at finding people who are able to help me figure that stuff out. And so as far as quizzes go, let me just quickly, peer assessments. Peer assessments is a little bit more, let's call it involved. And I'm just going to just spend about 1 minute on peer assessments. There it is. Okay, so I had 2 tracks. This was the project track. That one's a little bit more evolved, so let me just show you one of these. Diagnostic constraint. So there's the assessment. This one's actually, it's sort of live because the class has ended and they can't do things. But basically, give it a title, when's it open, when is the submission deadline. So when it appears, then they have to submit by a certain time, and then they have to evaluate by a certain time. So you have 3 dates in there that are you have to keep track of. There is the assignment text, purpose of this assignment, blah, blah, blah. They, in this case, they're uploading their diagnostic worksheet as a PDF file. Another student will get that PDF. And by forcing them to PDF, you're less worried, well, you're still worried, but you're less worried about viruses and also about different formats that people have, if it's a doc or docx, and people all around, can't guarantee that they're going to have any kind of any particular kind. Then for the assessment, you have to put in the evaluation criteria and be fairly specific here. Evaluation criteria, qualitative. I started backing off and started saying, are they using the language that we used in the course? So I'm asking them to evaluate someone's statement about innovation, and they talk about it. I'm asking them to use the language in the course. And if I have some person who very smart person maybe who doesn't have full control of English, and like Bangladesh is evaluating the paper of my 25-year veteran director of innovation for the United States Postal Service taking the class, right? And that person's evaluating that person, it gets really problematic because they you just have to be so clear on what the rubric is and how it is you evaluate and how it is you go through. You may have less of that if you're doing it for a closed audience in that way, but that was something that was it was the killer, and it was if there were any complaints, that was the source of the complaints. It was the peer evaluation part. So what I started trying to do is trying to make it's not evaluation, it's actually feedback. This is not assessment, this is feedback. And so I just had people give each other feedback and sort of take the points out of it, and then it got a lot easier after that. There was an assessment part. Did they turn it in? Yes, click. And then it was all about feedback after that. And then just rely on the quizzing and things to actually get the assessment part. So that's it. Anything you care to see? Or not? Should I stop? I'm going to stop. Okay, great, thanks.
Did you say, and you might have, did you say that the video quizzes, that all that stuff was recorded and put somewhere, like the results of that?
Yes.
The students? Okay.
Yeah, so there's a big database. Pretty much every keystroke is recorded of people. One thing to be aware of is that well, I'll just say that in terms of evaluation, students you can require people to post in the forums. For example, you got 3 times a week, whatever the number is. Students can also post anonymously. And so we didn't know that if the anonymous means anonymous.
Right.
So people would post, and even the fact that I couldn't figure out that for a person that posted. So
I often included a polling question within my embedded video questions, and then the next week I would release the results from the week before as part of an announcement. In this class, 91% got a 30%. So it wasn't easy to get that data, or in a format that was easy to.
Is the anonymous posting something we talk about our office is always there?
So students can always post anonymously, but in case it's abusive or anything, we know who it is and we can mark it.
Instructor can tell.
I'm back. I'll try to be very brief. I know we're late. I will say, in terms of the technical side of things, the virtual office hours, it took us a little bit of figuring out early on, but it seemed to work pretty smoothly after that. And so this was a little bit more straightforward. I'm going to get something started here while I say a few words. So as mentioned briefly earlier, we used Google Plus Hangouts on air for our virtual office hours sessions.
Is it that limited to 12 if you have a...
I'll tell you how we used it.
Oh,
Yeah.
nice.
Yeah. So, oops. Am I not logged in now? Hold on. Oops. Maybe I won't show you. I was logged in earlier today. You know how that goes. There we go. There we go. Well, now it's asking me to sign in again. I'll try one more time. There we go. Looks more like it. All right. So I'm going to start. Name it. Test. There we go. And it is now preparing broadcasting on 6%, which is why I wanted to get that going. Huh? Okay, thanks. There we go. So a few words. We were kind of inspired by a couple of things that were already happening in the Coursera landscape. One was that a number of Coursera courses have self-created, student-generated study groups that appear across the world. And so you may be taking a course in Tallahassee, Florida, and you post something to discussion boards and say, hey, if you're also in Tallahassee, meet me at the taco place on 5th every Tuesday night, and we'll just chat about what we're learning, right? And so these face-to-face gatherings were already happening. And so we thought we might be able to do something with that. The other was really the, we got a lot of tips and hints from the Modern Poetry course that Al Philreese does out of it's either UPenn or Penn State. I always get them mixed up. I know I shouldn't, but I do. And so he used these virtual office hours. And so we kind of did a blend of those two. So our goals were to connect our instructors with the students in the MOOC. This gets back to the instructor presence that I talked about earlier. Not only distant students, but also sometimes local students as well, folks in the Nashville area, students who were participating. And really to create that instructor presence, to build some community, and to do a lot of Q&A. Doug spoke to this, I think, earlier quite well. And so our logistics were, we created a Google Plus and a YouTube account for each of the courses, set up some space on meetup.com where we were able to help people get organized. And so then the instructor would set a date and a time. We'd get a room somewhere on campus for that date and time. And then we'd send out, we try to get the word out. The best way to get the word out was through the Coursera platform, because that's what the students are tuned into. And so then we'd say, if you're in the Nashville area, you can come here at this time and meet one of your instructors, right? So this is a different flavor than the study groups that happen spontaneously, because the instructor is actually going to be present at these. If you're not in the Nashville area, we're going to broadcast it live, and so then you can participate. And so I think we're about there. So I can start this broadcast. It will go out publicly. I'm logged into the Center for Teaching account right now, so that's where it's going. It says posting in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 seconds. It says Google Hangouts on air. And so this is now available in a couple of places. One is since I'm logged in as the Vanderbilt Center for Teaching, it is available on our Google Plus page. So actually, that's the easiest way if you want to try to find it, is go to Google Plus, search for Vandy CFT. Vandy CFT, I think that's the best way to get there. Okay. And it should be right there at the top of our profile page. Is anyone seeing it? Yeah? I don't know how fast you are. So you can find it from the Google Plus page. It's available there. Also, there's if you click on embed right here, you can get the URL, which is a YouTube URL. And so I can then share that. I can post that in discussion forums or on meetup.com. I can send that to my students, and so that they can go to it through YouTube as well. And so those are the two easiest ways to get to the video itself. So to get your question earlier, this is a Google Hangout. So in theory, I can add other Google Plus users with their own webcams. We would sometimes do that to get multiple cameras in the room. But we don't need more than 12 or so of them, right? Because we're not actually inviting all the students to do that piece of it. The students would interact by posting questions in the chat areas, either on Google Plus or on the YouTube page. And so that's where the questions would come in, via text chat in most cases. And so, yeah. Is that coming through? There's about a 10-second delay, I think, so you're probably hearing what I said 10 seconds ago. So that way, students around the world can watch it on Google Plus or YouTube. They can submit their questions via text chat. Students in the room, we didn't always do the blended. Sometimes we just did the virtual. Sometimes we did the blended. But students in the room can ask questions of the instructor. We'd often have someone, an assistant, a teaching assistant, or someone from my staff in the room to monitor the text chat to bring those questions to the attention of the instructor, because it's a little hard to be asking or answering questions and then also monitoring the text chat. So we had a little help from someone on that. The whole thing gets archived on YouTube automatically. This is the nice part about using the Google network here, is that it ends up automatically archived as a YouTube video. And so, as Doug said, there might be 100 people on the line watching it live and participating, but it might get 1,000 or 2,000 or 5,000 views after the fact as students around the world watch it. When you're doing the virtual, we had to pay attention to time zones, right? If you're just reaching students who are largely in Tennessee, you have only 2 time zones to deal with, which makes things a little bit simpler. But those are some of the considerations that we had. We also, I won't have time, they're all archived, so you can see what some of these actually look like. I mainly wanted to show you the tech side. Sometimes Doug would do these where it was just him in his office, and he'd just do the virtual. Other times we had Jamie and a couple of her course staff who were kind of sitting on couches together and answering questions. Other times we'd try to bounce back and include the students in the room as well. So lots of different options there. The upshot, 2 upshots. One, I think this went a long way to establishing that instructor presence and turning the course into more of a community, even though you had tens of thousands of students around the world. The other part is that the technical setup is not that bad. Like, I'm up and rolling right now. And so it took us a little bit to get to that point, but once we figured it out, it wasn't too bad. So, with that, I think, Peng Wei, are you up next? Okay. Thanks, Dave, for holding my camera. Yeah, you probably do.
Okay, well, it's running late, so I'll keep mine really short. But thanks a lot. Thanks. I just wanted to start by saying thanks a lot to our Vanderbilt hosts for showing us the Southern hospitality. It's a great privilege to stand here and listen and learn from all of you, from the feedback, suggestions, questions, and so on. And I think one big takeaway that at least I got, should have known this, listening to the afternoon session, was that this thing is complicated. It's hard to do. So teaching a MOOC is hard, and filming a MOOC is hard. From the school side of things, making the administrative structures to support teaching a MOOC is hard. And then as we start moving into blended learning, the flipped classroom, and start using other people's content or start using your own content in other people's classrooms, that gets harder. And then when we go into credit and so on, we haven't even touched that yet. And well, no answers in these closing remarks. But I wanted to say that just looking at the enormity of the challenge ahead of us, we are very happy to have all of you as partners, so that someone else to share the responsibility. And it is incredibly exciting to see that there are conversations like this that are happening at each of our partner institutions. Maybe not as good as, is it taped? But it is very exciting to see that conversations like this are happening at all of our partner institutions, with each of our 500 plus faculty, I think more than 2,000 faculty, staff, TAs, administrators, and so on the platform, talking with each other, learning from each other, teaching us what it means to teach a MOOC well. And that's cool. The road ahead is very exciting. We, on the platform side, we obviously have a long way to go. In terms of basic usability, in terms of features that students want, help for students, features that instructors want, in terms of social learning, Google Plus support. We're actually talking with Google to see how we can make it less onerous for you to have to add other students as Google Plus users into the Hangouts. Things like app platform, new forms of assessment, lots of things on the platform side. But there's also a lot of things that are happening just in terms of how we think about teaching. And the fact that there are conversations like this occurring and thinking about how teaching should look like in this new age with technology. That's cool, and that's very exciting. So thanks to Vanderbilt. We look forward to continuing to work with you. To the Tennessee folks from THAC, from Board Regions, and from UT Systems, welcome. We are very excited to start working with you. We hope to see you on the Partners Portal, in my inbox, and we also hope to see you at next year's Coursera Partners Conference. We can't wait to see how far we've come in one MOOC year. Thank you.